This area is being referred to as the Great Whale Sea. Humpback whales that were hunted almost to extirpation have recolonized the coast. They've moved into these interior waters where they were traditionally, and their populations have recovered dramatically. They're a huge part of the experience up here. They occupy the same place in our psyche as grizzly bears do. They're large, they're powerful, they're incredibly well adapted. They're sentient beings. They earn our awe and our respect. In the course of the trip, we managed a visit to Cetacea Lab. It's a small research operation that's been set up and operated by Herman Mutter and Janie Ray. They work very closely with the Gitgat people, and they have set up to do research particularly on humpback whales. All the marine mammals in the area, but they're focused really strongly on humpback whales.
This is Cetacea Lab, and it's located on the south end of Gill Island in a very remote area along the north coast of British Columbia, and it's right in the middle of what's called the Great Bear Rainforest. We chose this location because there were no people here. It was so remote, and we really wanted to study whales in a habitat without the impact of people, where we knew there were not a lot of marine vessels in the area. And as well, we really believed by looking at a chart that this would be an area that whales would come into, and we were right. One of the things we realized very quickly, if you want to research whales, you have to listen to whales. So much of their behavior is happening under the water. So we deployed a number of hydrophones throughout the whole area, all the way up from Hartley Bay, all the way out towards Camano Sound and the open water. And all these hydrophones actually transmit the signal from under the water back to the lab. So we can actually track different types of whales. We can track behavior and habitat use just by listening. Throughout the season, this humpback song that all the males are singing, it actually changes. And what we can't understand is A, who decides on the change, and B, how do they all know what change to add to their song?
The cetacean lab for me was perfectly placed in our trip. If we had gone earlier, I wouldn't have understood all that they were doing. And then to see them tracking the whales right at that point in our trip where we had seen some already, and then to be able to hear them, their conversation and how they're working together was amazing.
Humpback whales, up until the late 60s, were hunted in these waters, and their population was just decimated. And then after the late 60s, and they stopped the hunting, the population slowly started to come back. So what we've noticed in the last decade is a huge increase in the number of humpback whales that are coming into these waters. So when we do a marine mammal survey, we go out there and we photograph each whale. And when a humpback takes a dive, when it goes down, its massive tail comes up, and that's when we take the picture. And every humpback tail is very unique. It's like a fingerprint to us. So we can then put together a catalog, and from that catalog we can determine how many whales are coming back year after year. So we started out with 42, and then suddenly in 2006 we had over 80 humpback whales, and that number has just constantly grown year after year. Now we have well over 300 resident humpback whales that are coming and using these waters to feed, to socialize, to introduce their calves to an area that they feel is home. We believe that one of the reasons that humpback whales are coming back to these waters is because it's so nutrient rich. There's lots of food here. And you have to remember that humpback whales, they don't feed during the winter. So when they go to Hawaii or Mexico, they're there for months at a time. There's no food, they're not feeding. So just imagine a mother has given birth to a calf. She's nursing this calf and she's not eating. Now she has to travel 3,000 miles to get to where she knows there's food. So that's why this area is so important, because when she arrives here, she is starving and she is dependent on the survival of herself and that calf, that the food that she's used to is actually here and that she can find the food.
Before they emerge, you see the bubbles in the middle of the ring. They're exhaling as they open their mouth, and that's pushing the last bit of the feed right up to the surface, and then they just whoa, right at the surface altogether.
I'm kind of a whale junkie, so seeing whales is always a real pleasure for me. I actually plan our family vacations around seeing whales. Yesterday we got to see bubble net feeding. The humpbacks were bubble net feeding, and I've seen that once before. It was phenomenal, and just the coordinated effort of these animals makes one pause to think, because they really are very intelligent beings.
In order to protect this area, we want to take our data and we want to share this with the Gitgat of Hartley Bay so that they can use that information to protect their territory. We also want to take this information and give it to the public so they understand how many whales are here and how pristine and beautiful this place is, and that, you know, to empower everybody with that information so that we can protect this area from oil tankers and from natural gas tankers and try to keep this place as it is right now. I just can't imagine a planet without whales. To me, that's a very empty ocean. It's a very empty planet. They're such a sacred species because they can teach us so much if we listen. You know, for example, with the resident orcas, when you watch how they behave with each other, you realize very quickly there would be no such word as I, only we, because they're so community-based. They're all about each other. Every day I'm out there, I learn something from these whales, and I feel so blessed to be in their company. All around the planet, people are really amazed by whales, and I think there's a reason for that. I think that we connect to them on some level that just shows us they are just magnificent.